Glitch Reaper here. I'm back for more of the Aquatic update, and as you can see, I'm back in snapshot mode, although in this case it's because it's already moving on to a 0.1 version. Yeah, that's right, it's going into 1.13.1. And they are doing some further refinements, and that does mean I have some additional news. Squid now will only spawn in oceans and river biomes, so no more random squid. That's actually a problem if you need ink, so yeah, have fun with that. Now, in other things, there's been kind of some additional refinements, and there's something I just didn't have a moment to show before, and that's the petrified oak slab. It's not really something that's really new, but it is actually something old. You see how it looks just like a regular oak slab? Well, if I were to go into survival right about now, so game mode, yoink. Okay. Well, if I now that I'm in survival, you may notice something. It looks like it's made of wood, but it doesn't mine like it. See, it takes forever to do with an axe because it's not based on an axe. It's actually based on harder substances like stone. So what this really represents is there used to be a time whenever slabs were actually treated just as if they were stone. They didn't have like wooden properties applied to them, like the ability to burn and the ability to be like chopped with an axe easier than being able to be mined with a pickaxe. So this actually represents a throwback to that old era, but in kind of an interesting creative way. It can kind of give people a bit of a twist when it comes to like maps. They where instead of having to have an axe to chop through it, they'd need a pickaxe because it does in fact count as if it were stone. So hence why they call it petrified. I don't think the texture looks any different than a regular oak slab, but again, it has the old school stone properties. So in addition to not being axable very well, it's also resistant to things like fire and stuff. So that's definitely a thing. Okay. So yeah, that happened where they decided to go back to that in a way and revisit the old era of slabs acting all in one way. So that's just kind of something neat to note, is that they kind of have a creative-only version of this. Again, creative-only, so if you're trying to get this otherwise, it has no survival crafting method. I mean, at least these you can axe a tree in the right way. With those, no, there's no way to craft it, so sorry. Now, in other things, we're going on to new stuff mostly, and I will be kind of furthering that over time. But one thing is pretty easy to notice, the kelp forest. You will be finding kelp pretty much everywhere in the ocean. I already kind of went over, see how seagrass is basically just like an aquatic version of grass that's also animated. But kelp, on the other hand, is totally new, in a way. I mean, a lot of these things actually used to be in certain mods, like Biomes of Plenty had things kind of like seagrass, and it also had kelp. It also, and mods like that, and I do believe Tropicraft also had things like this before, including such things as variations of coral. And that's also a very new thing here, so I just drop into this coral reef, and suddenly new stuff everywhere, including these sea pickles, which oddly enough I don't remember a mod specifically adding that. That's actually kind of a new thing, so allow me to feed the sea pickles. And yeah, that's definitely a thing. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I probably don't need to go over these in terms of like holding on to the actual blocks as much as I was going to, but they do have special variations, and each has its own lineage. Now, at the moment, you can't craft between different types of coral in any way. Like, you can't craft between the block form, the fan form, as you can see growing on the sides, or this form that's kind of referred to simply as coral. Like, for a while they were kind of thinking of it almost like a plant, but coral is actually made out of small animals, not plants. Although it grows like a plant. So you can kind of think of it a little hybridized in concept. But that's just the way that it actually is in nature, is that it's a animal that acts like a plant. Now, in terms of which lineages of coral we have tube coral. and that's the ones that are blue. And you can kind of see the texture kind of has these little round areas that kind of represent the ends of the tubes. So you can see how that works out. And if I go around and find, yeah, see here's the plant-like version, so to speak, or the one just referred to as coral. You can easily see kind of like the tube endpoints on that. And there's also the fans. The fans are usually a little harder to see the distinctions of their lineage, although they do keep the same color as the same type. So coral of each specific lineage comes in 3 different forms, and you could also say of each of the colors. Now, unlike with things like wool and dyes and stuff like that, they only come in 5 major colors. They don't come in the full color of the rainbow. This is partially because, well, Minecraft rainbow. This is because coral is usually found only in certain varieties in nature, although they are very colorful varieties. So because of this, you have that property where you kind of got to go with how it is. So you just keep that in mind as I go along with coral. Now we also have another variety over here. We have brain coral, which you could say kind of looks a bit like brain matter. And you can kind of see it's like plant-like variation here. And it's the one in pink. And let's see, that's not the fan. Where's the pink fan? Come over here. I need the pinkish fan. Ah, here we go. See, that's the fan variety. And then we have bubble coral, which looks obviously very bubbly. Yeah, these little things are like bubble formations, and that's kind of how that is naturally as well. It's the one that's basically purple. And as I was trying to find some others, I found variations that wasn't the one I was looking for, but that's okay, because now I can show off the ones that correspond with bubble coral. Here we have the plant-like version in its natural habitat, and we just need to go a little bit around to find the proper fan. There we go. There's the fan of bubble coral. And we also have, on to the next one, we have the yellow variety, which is known as horn coral. It's harder to see horns in block formation. It's better to see it in the other varieties. Like this, it does kind of look like horns poking out with the fan variation. And let me see if I can find myself a nice... oh yeah. See, here it looks kind of like antlers. So you can see why they call it horn coral. It's probably more for this variety over here. So yeah, there's that. Now we also have fire coral, which does look red and fiery, so you can tell why they named it that. And here you have the red block formation, you have the fan formation, which looks kind of like an unanimated fire. So, yeah. Let me see, can I find... okay, and here's the plant-like variation, or just plain coral variation as well. Now, you can easily tell the corals from the surrounding environment for another reason is that they are not animated. They're not flowing around. This is because, in reality, coral is actually very stiff, so it doesn't go with the flow as much as you'd think. So that's how that part works. Now, there's some things to note about all these coral varieties, and because I didn't really need to hold on to these fans, I can just let them go. That'll alleviate some of my inventory for later. But anyhow, as I was saying, there's certain things to be noted about all coral. If you are going to try to obtain it, if you want to grab either the fan or the straight up coral variety like this one here, you need to have silk touch. In terms of the blocks, it's interesting because if you silk touch the block, you get the live variety. If you don't, you get the dead variety, which are kind of grayed out versions. Now, also, if coral gets out of the water, it will die and turn into the grayed out dead variety. Now, you may notice over here, I have myself some brain coral that I was using for my review earlier. It's all live. This is because it's touching water at least some point. Now, this can also work just by being below it. It doesn't have to be, like, directly in this fashion. Like, if I do a couple here, then this should hydrate it. See, this one's not dying off. But you can see now what I mean by it dying. That you will get, like, a dead variation if it's not able to be in contact with water somehow. So you can't have water below it and you can have it touching any side directly or on top of it. It just has to touch at least one side or be directly adjacent to it. So that's how you can keep your coral live. There doesn't seem to be any way to do that otherwise right now. Like, I don't think there's a command or anything that just gives it an indefinite lifespan, at least not yet. But again, you have dead varieties of each coral. They're basically a lot like the colored versions, except that they're grayed out. So you can kind of see how that goes. Although I can also just demonstrate here. See, tube, brain, bubble, horn, fire. And it happens pretty quickly, as you can see pretty well there. Now, does this count? I don't think so. Okay. Yep. As I suspected, cauldrons don't count. So even though they count in a lot of ways as if they were a water block, they don't count towards hydrating your coral. So yeah, this means coral and the nether probably won't really mix. So that's definitely a thing. Now we also, of course, have an actual plant in the form of, well, I might want to just go over the coral reef and go over the other thing first, actually. Because we have these sea pickles that you may have seen me messing with before. The thing is, they have an interesting way of operating. Now let me take out the judge here. I'm going to see if I can mine these sequentially. Okay, so I think that's still going to take some getting used to. Okay, now let me see. I'm trying to remember if I can actually just punch these. Yeah, I can punch them. Now it seems to grab the entire block at once. So that's something to note. You can just instantly poof them. And that makes things very interesting. Now, another thing that's really cool about these sea pickles is they can actually produce light based on A, the fact of whether or not they're underwater, and B, how many of them there are. They can be placed on land without penalty. And you can put them in the same block location. But you can see that they don't have this thing on the top that looks either like hair or a wick or a stem. So if you do, however, put them underwater, then you'll see that that appears. That's your sign that it's producing light. And they do max out whenever you have 4 of them. It's not the absolute best lighting, but if you're doing an underwater base, then it can actually be pretty cool. Let's see how much. Okay, so let me go down here. So what is our maximum lighting? Okay, need to just catch my breath just for a second here. Oh, by the way, if you hold sneak, you can go underwater a lot faster than you used to. So you can commit to a dive. Okay, now let me see. Light level says 15. That means it's as good as glowstone whenever you have a full set. Now, another thing to remember is that they are not just there in that exact fashion. They're not just something that you can grab the normal way and then forget about it because you're thinking, oh, I can mine it up. It's like that's the only thing about it. No, it's a lot better than that, because you can in fact farm these. It's so you can have an active set. It's not something that's just locational. The main thing to note is that you do need some bone meal to do so, and you do need some sea pickles on coral. It has to be on coral, and specifically I do believe it needs to be on the block. So that's not exactly renewable. But you can, however, make this renewable. So this is kind of in the category of semi-renewable things. As I've shown before, you can use bone meal on the sea pickles to increase the number of them that there are just in that set. But if they're on coral, then there's also a chance of them spreading, as you can see there. And they will go to nearby coral blocks. It seems to only work in this fashion, but it can work very quickly. Like, it's not taking many attempts to get it to spread decently. And it can spread kind of like how grass does in terms of what areas it can select, but only along coral. However, as you can see, you can also jump diagonals. It seems to be heavily favoring the same plane. So at the same Y level or height, it tends to spread the most. So that's how sea pickles can work. There's also something else you can do with them. You can cook them up for some dye, which is interesting in and of itself. Now, let me see. Do I have myself a furnace over here? I probably should, in case of doing things like this. I don't... Well, I might actually need that crafting table later. But you can, in fact, put sea pickles in here. And, let me see here. Lime dye. It doesn't show it quite in the way that I would have imagined it, but it basically said you can, in fact, like, this will be showing, like, smeltable recipes. It's showing lime dye here. But it's not showing the full recipe the way I would think. Let me... Okay, never mind. It's work in progress. So yeah, there is that. So let me just grab myself a nice little piece of coal here. And show how this part works, because you can smelt it up. So let me give that a little few moments here. And before it even goes, we get some lime dye. And it will be the lime variety, not cactus green. So you won't be able to cheat yourself getting a cactus in terms of getting straight up cactus green, but you can get around it by going to the ocean and cooking up some sea pickles, which, as I showed, are essentially renewable. So you can farm them, so that does make that an option if you want lime green as opposed to some other kind of green. So that's that part of the coral reef, and as I said before, again, nice to see some sand back in the ocean, because it's been a while. I almost got used to it not being there, but I never really did like it as gravel only. But at least now we got some biomes that work out fine. So that just feels so much better. Thank you, thank you. Now, another thing is, if you're in a warm ocean biome, in addition to making that seagrass, you also have the ability to produce random colors of the coral variation, and the coral variation only. Like, you can't create the block, you can create the coral. This chance, as you can see, is greatly increased if you're in a coral reef biome. Like, greatly increased, like, as in it pretty much just does it, which is a very good thing to reward you that way. If you're in the biome but not in the reef, then it might be a different story. But in the reef, you pretty much just get random coral. So yeah, so that makes the coral plant straight up renewable, even if the coral blocks currently are not. In the future, they might have some kind of crafting in between them, so you might be able to, say, do coral blocks as if they were not exactly a storage block, but kind of like how they've got with netherwort, where it takes 9 of them and then you can make it into a block form. You can't go back on it, because that would make a lot of sense. Pressing it into a block, but it not going back the other way, because not everything has to have storage block. Although I do like storage blocks a lot, I'm just thinking, even in my reasoning, that that's one of those things that I don't really see as a storage block per se. I see it as like you craft it once and then there it is. So yeah, so nice. See, there we had a nice mix of the seagrass and the coral, and we've had a couple others that went by pretty nicely. Okay, so that shows a bit of a variety of that. So it's nice that they've added that feature, and that's in the 1.13.1 snapshots right now, and we'll be in the finalized version of that. So yeah, that's cool. Maybe by that time they'll have added some way of converting between coral variations. Okay, on to something else now, because that's enough of the exclusive features of the reef. So I will be going around and finding myself some kelp to dry out, because that's totally a thing. Okay, I need to surface to get my orientation, because let's face it, this is one of the biggest coral reefs that you might see for quite some time, and I just found it at random. Oh, this is a thing I'll go over later. I was wanting to do more basic, you'll run into it first type stuff, but yeah. I was going to go over kelp and how that works. It's not exclusive to the reef, but it is all over the ocean, so you'll need to know more about it. The thing about it is it grows kind of like underwater sugarcane. You can plant it very low if you just have a sample of it, and it grows upwards. It will not grow above the water line, though. And that's something you kind of got to keep in mind with these aquatic plants. They won't grow if they don't have water to grow into. Like, for example, if I had a seagrass right here, and then I were to bone meal it, note that it's not going any higher. That's because it won't go above the water line. Now, that can also be said for kelp. You cannot grow it above the water line. Well, you can't actually bone meal it anyhow, but you can see what I mean, that you can't grow it above the water line. It only grows on its own, actually. That bone meal effect was just the fact that you can bone meal things underwater to do things now, so yeah. But if you break kelp, then what will happen is all the pieces above it will be freed, and they will float upwards. And you will get one each, although since I'm in creative, I'll get that one. Also remember, of course, items float now, so very dramatically you'll be sending them all to the surface slowly. So it's like, whoa! Poof. Now the thing about kelp is, in this form, it is plantable, as I was saying. You may use this to get more kelp growing upwards. Like, for example, if I were to put one here. And now, over time, it will grow upwards. And again, remember, this doesn't accelerate it. It just spreads grass and stuff. Now, the thing about it is that means that you'll just have to wait it out. Normally speaking, you'll just have to wait that out. So we'll see if that grows any by the time I'm done with this section. Now, another thing to think about is, again, we have to go with Mr. Furnace over here again. That's definitely going to be a thing. So let me just get myself a couple of those. Get myself some nice coal again. Maybe charcoal this time. Just cause. But basically said, this will be able to be dried out. And that's another use other than just planting it. And it looking nice for your aquatic area. But whenever it's dried out, it becomes this. Dried kelp. Dried kelp is a food source. It can actually be eaten a little bit quicker than other foods in Minecraft, which I think is kind of interesting. It's not like instant, but it is, however, faster. So you'll notice that really quickly whenever you actually eat it. It doesn't give much. It's kind of a snack. So I'm going to go on to show something else while I'm waiting. Of course, I could go in survival and see how that works. Oh, wait, I could have used the other feature. Ahem. Let's do kelp into... No, I don't want to make the kelp. I want to get the block form. Okay. There we go. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so, oh yeah, I need to, there we go. I need to click that while shifting. Okay, anyhow, still getting used to the fact that we actually have that functionality in Minecraft now. But dried kelp blocks are useful in more than one way. They are storage form for dried kelp, so you can craft back and forth between it. As I was showing there. As I said, you can eat it. Do I have any hunger loss at all over this time? Okay, I'm just gonna do this as if I was doing these normally. Oh wait, that's right, you can't do that. It has to be specified. That's a weird thing to deal with. And no, I don't have any hunger loss right now, so that means I won't be able to snack this. And you can't, unlike some other things, you can't eat them when you're not hungry. So yeah, there's that. You can't eat these when you're not hungry, so I can't demonstrate the system for that right now. I can, however, cook some more up. Now, another thing to note is that if you use a dried kelp block, it's not just decoration. It is something that you can use, and you can punch it away and get it back. So it's considered a soft block. I do believe it's faster to harvest with a axe. So let me axe this if that's correct. Maybe, maybe not. But anyhow, it is something that it doesn't take too terribly long to punch up. Now the thing is, it also can act as fuel. So you could put that in the fuel slot, actually. If you use a dried kelp block, it can give you an appreciable amount of smelts, like about 20 or so. So that's definitely a thing you can do with them. You can use them as fuel. And that's actually something that's, again, inspired by real world things, is you can in fact use them as fuel. Now, I have a few things also to show in other aspects, but that's kind of it for the reef to a degree, and the general, like, everywhere stuff. I've already shown the fish, so if you see any of them, you've seen them before. But, on the other hand, we also have new mobs and things to go over. But at the same time, I'm trying to actually work up an appetite in survival, so that's not going to be a thing. Oh, I guess I'll just have to zip around. Yeah, we have the whole trident dynamics. You can only get tridents from the drowned, and I'm not entirely sure if there's a default chance in Java Edition, like there is in Bedrock. But in Bedrock, there's like a default chance always of getting a trident from a drowned. You can definitely, however, have a chance of getting them if you fight the drowned and they're carrying one. You may also see this item, a Nautilus shell. If they're carrying that, they will always drop it if you take them down. And as I said before, you can also fish them out. But the big thing here is the tridents. And the tridents have special enchantments that you can use. As you see, I've got these two enchanted a little bit differently between the two of them. Now, one of these has, one of these has something called Riptide, and it can go up to 3rd level, and the other one has Loyalty 3 and Channeling. The reason why those are different is they do contradict. You cannot have Loyalty and or Channeling on a Trident if you have Riptide, and this is because it very fundamentally changes how the Trident actually works. Unbreaking 3 and Mending can go on them regardless because that can go on anything. Now, Impaling will also be able to go onto Tridents. Even though they are a weapon, and I do mean serious weapon, like cool weapon, they are not quite the same as a sword. So they don't accept sword enchants, like no looting, sharpness, knockback, fire aspect, stuff like that. Sorry. No sword enchants work on these, and vice versa. You cannot get Impaling on a sword. Impaling is specifically meant to deal extra damage to aquatic creatures. This includes things like the fish, the mob versions of fish, includes squid, includes either type of guardian, it includes the new drowned mobs, and it also includes other things like dolphins and turtles. And this is something that's probably going to need to be kept in mind for mods later, is actually qualifying things as aquatic enough for this. So, just a thought. Now, there have been pole arms in mods before, and some have even had multiple types in the same mod, including tridents before. Oddly enough, Lord of the Rings mod had that. And the thing is that there's been many depictions of polearms in Minecraft. Some have had extra reach, some have been throwable, and so on. So there's a big diversity of polearms from the real life perspective. So that's kind of where you kind of had to really think of which way you wanted to depict it. So that's been kind of in the history for a while, and when you think about that, that also means the style of attack itself might change from one version to another. And that's partially why they got the enchantments different, is one represents doing something differently with it, although it's nothing I've seen in any other depiction of a polearm. So, yeah, it's kind of a bit different. Now, the usual use, and I say usual use of your tridents in Minecraft, will be to use them either in melee, and they're a little slower than a sword. A sword has a speed of 1.6, they have a speed of 1.1. However, they deal heavier damage by default than a sword, kind of like how axes deal bigger damage but are slower. In this case, it deals like 9 damage, which is... don't take this particular sword as an example because it's enchanted. Anyhow, it is... because normally, like, a diamond sword would be 7 damage, and this is 9. It won't show its general damage heightened because that is specialty damage when it comes to Impaler. It's only against aquatics. It's not in general. So that's why it doesn't list it entirely. Now, so just think about that. So again, it's a weapon. Now, it does not have extended reach, even though it is a polearm. And the thing about it is that you can, however, throw it. So it's the thrown style of polearm, which is nice. You just pull it back for a moment, and you can hurl it. Now, this is an enchanted version. The reason why it came back to me is because it has a special enchantment called Loyalty. Normally speaking, they just stay stuck in the ground and they'd stay stuck in the ground, pretty much. It's weird. My visual isn't working. I may have saw the visual earlier when I was doing that other thing. Let me see. Is there something out of my video settings that's not having that working? I don't think so. Because it's not exactly a particle. Normally there's an effect whenever you have one pulled back due to loyalty that looks almost like a magical band of energy pulling it back. Right now it's not doing that. Okay, let me give it a really good toss. It's not doing that for some reason. Did I hit something? Did I hit something with all that distance? I might have. I might have hit something, because if it hits either a mob or a block, that's when it will start returning to you. So I think I actually hit something. I think there was a random fish there or something I just whacked. I don't even know what I hit, but something probably just bit it, because this thing did not have that durability taken out before that. Oh, okay, I can actually eat something now. I can demonstrate the kelp. See, that's a little faster than usual. It's barely a snack, really, but it's something to keep in mind. And because of that, I can go back to creative. Okay, because I was just waiting on that. Aww, the turtle is laying eggs. Isn't that beautiful? Yes. I'll get back to you and your turtle egg dynamics later. But yeah, again, these are meant to return to you. Now, whenever you are in creative, it'll just relentlessly do that, whether or not it leaves... Well, the fact is, in creative, it won't leave your hand. But it will still do the returning back to you animation. So, kind of a little odd how that works, but that's just creative quirk. Things are always kind of like that to a degree when it comes to projectiles and stuff. There's always something different with how they work. So, yeah. Now, that's basically how loyalty is supposed to help you out. It's supposed to let it return to you when normally it would just sit there. And it's definitely a really cool enchantment. Now, the thing about channeling, on the other hand, is dependent on weather. So let me see if I can conjure up myself a bit of a storm. But yeah, the thing is, when you're in the middle of a thunderstorm, specifically, then something special happens. You gain the ability to use the channeling enchantment to, well, do that. You can actually conjure lightning on top of your target. That was just a very dramatic example. In fact, that was very close to creating a charged creeper. And there's more than one reason why you might want to actually channel lightning, even in vanilla. Charged creepers, if they explode, they take off their enemy's head. So, yeah, you can get some serious trophies that way. Also, you might want to turn, like, pigs into zombie pigmen, or maybe use lightning for something else. And of course, later on with some mods that have special uses for lightning, this will come in handy because it counts as true lightning. And he's sitting in the fire. But yeah, see, I charged that one up because it was already in a thunderstorm. You can't do that if it's not in a thunderstorm. An interesting fact about charged creepers, if they get hit by lightning again, regardless of how much health, darn lips, regardless of how much health they have, they automatically die. Hey, the explanation is they become overcharged. That's something that's been there for a long time. It's just a lot easier to do this way. Also, whenever you do hit them with lightning, obviously their health is going to be pretty low, so that might actually mean you get more skeleton-based finishes and get more music discs that way. Even if you were originally going for a head, you might wind up with a music disc instead. Also, interesting point, certain things will work in rain as if they were in regular water. So it's time to transition over to the other version, this one. Now, if you have, oh, by the way, one thing I almost forgot to say about loyalty and impaling. They do have levels. Impaling goes up to level 5s for massive increased damage on aquatics. Loyalty goes up to level 3, and the way loyalty works is the higher the level, the faster it comes back to you. So, very handy when you've also got the lightning, because you can cause it really fast. Now, Riptide is different. It is where you don't throw the trident when you're out of water at all. But if you are in water, or possibly in rain, if this is still counting, then you will go flying. In other words, you don't throw the trident, it throws you. And it has a really cool effect. Yeah, you're surrounded by this aura, and you go spinning. Like, it's like going Psycho Crusher with M Bison off Street Fighter. So, hence why I call this one Hydro Crusher. Because it's hydro powered. And that's an interesting quirk about rain now, in general, is that it counts as water for various reasons. Like, for example, if I were to get back to my original area, if I can find it, then I have another new thing set up already, and it should give me the effect just because I'm in rain. I need to find it. I think my reef is this way. You can also charge this for a lot of jumps really fast. If you have the Electra, yes, you can use this rapidly, and in a very fun way. Note how from first person, darn lips, first person perspective, it looks like you're just stabbing forward, and you're just kind of gliding with it. Just like you're just pointing in the direction, like, I want to go that way! And that's how it's working. Okay. And whenever you normally do this, here's the bigger upshot of it. Oh, missed. Whenever you hit, you can slam into things with it, but if they have impact damage, they might also hurt you, so in a survival scenario, it's a bit of a mixed story. Although you can do some pretty good damage. So I am bouncing off them like crazy. I'm gonna do this with the spider and in the other perspective. It is where you look. So you can thrust kind of downward. You can drive yourself into the water. So yeah, that's a thing now. But why is it that I can't find my primary island? Again, this reef is just enormous, so yeah, I think I got lost that way. Although it's not really a major consequence because the new stuff is basically everywhere. I mean, this particular seed is fantastic for ocean stuff, so it's not like I'm not going to be able to show something new, because everything is new around here pretty much. It's kind of insane. So, even though I will kind of try to go around, and the weather might be preparing to clear on its own. At least it's no longer thunderstorm. That happened. Yep, it fully cleared. Okay. Well, no more fun with the trident zooming around that way. But, it was brief. It was nice. And it doesn't have to be storming for you to use Riptide. It just has to be raining. So, that's definitely a different thing. And I might I might try something here. Just making sure. Okay. Because I should be close to my... Yeah. That's the easier way to do it sometimes. Okay, I'm back to my spot. Although I need to see if the rain is working for the other thing. So just a brief moment of weather again. Will I get the effect? Yeah, I'm getting the effect. You probably wonder why I'm getting an effect. That's gonna be definitely with more of the new stuff, because that's caused by this beautiful thing, the conduit. As you can see, it's animated, it has its own effects and particles, its own sounds and everything. It's awesome. And as you can see, as I was trying to explain before, for every purpose of being in water now, other than needing to breathe, you count as being in water. So the fact is, conduit is meant to give you special effects only while you're in water. But I can get the same things in rain, and this leads to an interesting little exploit you can do, because it kind of boosts your mining speed. It's meant to equilibrate your ability to mine underwater, but in practice, if it's raining, you can use that for very high-speed mining on land. That's just kind of hilarious. It seriously does. You can mine like crazy on land as long as you have this thing working. So yeah, that's cool. Now I can turn off the rain for a moment. Okay. Because I just wanted to show off how rain was counting towards a lot of watery things, so that just being used as an extra example, and that effect will clear in a moment because I'm no longer considered in water. So yeah, that happened for a while. Well, I'm still in range, so it might not automatically go away. There you go. Thank you. Okay, so I was going to go over some more things, and partially it will be the quest to get that awesome conduit item. So, how would you normally receive such a thing? Let me see, does this have... No, that's a regular map. I was trying to remember if I had the map in here. But you will be seeing these structures a large amount of the time. Now, these are easier to see because they're on land. This isn't a common occurrence, but if they happen to be manifested at an island area where it's still technically ocean or beach, then they will have a possibility of actually manifesting as a surface structure. Normally these would be found completely underwater. And also note that they will be made of different blocks. They can be made out of variations of sand and sandstone, have themselves some nice stairs. They may have magma blocks, and in the overworld, that's interesting. And if you were to encounter one of these in the ocean like this, you'd see maybe a patch or two of bubble column going downward, and that would be kind of your sign that it wasn't a massive patch, and therefore possibly a special structure. So you can have an interesting clue by that fact, that they can actually have magma blocks as part of them. They can also have various forms of prismarine, including occasionally a light source in the form of a sea lantern, so that might be of interest. Now you can see they have various treasure, including possibly an enchanted fishing rod, stone axes, and other tools for that matter, and lots of food. Like that one had a ton of wheat. This one, oh, this is what I was going here for. As you can see, you can also get emeralds and other things from them, so that is actually pretty awesome. Now the big thing I am going here for is a treasure map. Let me see, can I orientate with this treasure map and find my way to it? Let me see if that's there. Can I make myself find this treasure? Because the thing is, it will be literally X marks the spot. This is actually a variation of the earlier exploration maps you could get in 1.11, except that it's, well, each one has a different style, and these buried treasure maps have their own style as well. And you can see how they have an X as their marker. Now the thing about all exploration maps is they will only show you an unexplored area. So if, okay, that happened quickly. I'm lining up. Okay, now am I going the right way this way? Or do I have to turn around? This is guiding me towards an island. The thing about it is it's guiding me towards actual buried treasure. buried treasure will manifest in the form of a treasure chest that's just below the surface. So very much fitting the name and general concept of buried treasure. I may have to go the other way, because usually these are meant to be close. Okay, I definitely need to go the other way. The thing about all exploration maps is they make your point go smaller the farther away you are. So in this case, I am zeroing in as my point on the map is getting bigger. I just need to gradually line my way up with that area as I move till I can adjust the exact angle and line up with it. So this is an unused one, and it will get me to the X if I can. Whenever I'm basically on top of it, that's where I need to dig. And they will be very close to surface level every time. So you never have to go very far down whenever you get a buried treasure. It's something that's specifically meant to be easy to find once you have a map. If you don't have a map, you might stumble across it, actually, because they will already be generated in your world. They just won't be like marked in any way or easily visible. Like if you so because they are an underground structure, and I should be right on top of one. Hi again, Rain. Might actually use you again later, I don't know yet. Ah, there we go. Beautiful. Whoa, I exploded it. I exploded it. It much too fast. I think I have enough inventory slots. I got TNT. And I got an iron ingot there. Okay. Okay, just making sure that I have room for this, because this is the important thing. Okay. I got a lot of gold. But yeah, I got, let's see what all I got. I got some additional, is it clear weather? It makes it just quieter. Okay, I got some more emeralds there. I got some prismarine crystals, which normally you'd have to go to an ocean monument to get. Got myself some extra iron, some gold ingots. I got myself some TNT, which is interesting that that's a prize. I got some cooked salmon, and because I know what I had in my inventory before, so trust me. And I got this super important thing, the heart of the sea. The thing is, this is how you get that totally new item, the conduit. As I've said before, Nautilus shells are kind of an extension of a couple things. For one thing, they're an extension of there being cephalopods in the game, even though there's no mob associated with them. And Fossils and Archaeology mod, on the other hand, whew, that actually had Nautiluses, so you could actually get these in a mod before. But now we're in vanilla, so cool stuff happening in vanilla. Thank you. But the thing is, you actually need these to make that awesome conduit that I showed. The thing over there that was making the cool sounds and giving me a special effect whenever I was in the water. The way to actually obtain this is to have 8 of these Nautilus shells and 1 Heart of the Sea. Now, because the treasure map guides you so well, it's actually possibly, in my opinion, easier to get the Heart of the Sea than the 8 Nautilus shells you need. Because they're not really that common. They're not really like super rare either. But these, you can guarantee them because they will always be in those buried treasure chests every last time. And like, seriously, they made it like a guarantee. Like, for example, right now, it's showing the recipe for the conduit. It requires 1 Heart of the Sea right in the middle. And you need to have 8 of these Nautilus shells. So remember how before I said they were a fishing treasure or something you'd occasionally see from the ground? Yeah, you need 8 of those. That's going to add up real fast. I just crafted myself a conduit. Now, the thing is, the one I showed off earlier was activated. That's because I'd already built the structure. So you're probably wondering, well, what is it like otherwise? Well, you can't even place it on land. You need to place it in water. And you can see right here that the conduit isn't active. The other state you can see was doing all its animations and stuff. Well, the reason why is, again, fairly simple. you have to use a special multi-block, kind of like using a beacon. And like with beacons, there is a basic version and advanced version as you keep filling it out. So you can kind of keep adding on to make it better. Now the effect is not selectable like with a beacon, like where you can select which thing you want. It's not something that levels up like, again, a beacon where you can make it more powerful, but you can get a bigger radius of the effect being able to help you. And a fully powered version of a conduit will also damage hostile mobs to get very close to it. Let me just see if this one counts. Nope, it's not powered up enough yet. Oh, I'll have to assist it later. Well, shows you the difference. But yeah. Okay, here's how to... Oh, here's an example where you might want to mine. Wow, I hadn't even saw this yet. But as you can see, we're in a ravine with various resources that you might want to mine out. Some nice diorite you might use as a decorative base, some iron, some coal. These deep sea ravines tend to have a lot of resources, but on the other hand, if you don't have the ability to breathe water at the time, they're a bit tricky. Now, on the other hand, A, we have a conduit, and B, I know how to power it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do that part, which is really handy because apparently the effect just ran out and I am now temporarily in the dark. Kind of. It's deep. It's deep down here. Yeah, we're in the deeps. Trying to find the right spots. Okay. Well, also another note is if you already have the effect somewhere, you can use one to help you create another. And that way you get a line of effect stretching from one area to another. So you can actually use a build like that. Now, the thing is, to actually position this thing is a bit different. It cannot actually be activated simply sitting on top of a block. It actually has to be a couple spaces in the middle. So you will want to suspend it a bit. In fact, I think it needs to be a little further up. For the best version. Well, let me check. Let me look back on mine because I can use it as an example. And this weather is going nuts today. Nah, it just needs to be one up. But the weather won't affect me if I'm down here, so yeah. I'm good. Now, you can use different variations of prismarine. You can use different variations of prismarine. It doesn't have to be the base version, it doesn't have to be the brick version, and they can be mixed between them. So, for example, right now, I'm using dark prismarine, which is one of my personal favorites, admittedly. Now, if I were to put this fish up, I could grab myself some other variations of prismarine and use them in a mixed build, just to show that that can work. So we have regular prismarine, we have the bricks. Okay, so let's make it this way. As I was showing, you need it to be kind of spaced in between. It will possibly start powering up just a little bit, but it won't be complete. It won't be truly active. It's just showing you that it's correctly underwater, and that the more that you add to it, the closer it gets to activating until it really does. Now, it always has to, at all times, be in a 3x3x3 volume of water. You cannot, repeat, cannot have it with any other blocks within that area for it to be powered up. So that's a very specific part of the build you need to know. You need to make sure that all of your bordering blocks are outside of that. So, yeah, let's say that I wanted to make the columns out of something different. I got my prismarine here as a little cross. And now I've got these brick varieties right over here. You can see it powering up a little bit more. It'll get a little bit faster each time. That's your sign that you're getting it right. A little bit more. And it needs a certain amount of blocks to be able to power up in a certain degree of the build. Aha, is activating. So you can see you actually need kind of a decent number of them. Right now I'm using these for special sides, and I'm going to be using the other block as a filler. See, right now it's basically at the same point I had it before. You'll also note that the drown still isn't getting harmed. So for that, I'll need to use a filler block. And this will increase the amount of energy that it has, and the closeness it is to being able to attack, and I might want to clear out that storm on principle. Because it's the thunder is kind of interfering with stuff. But as you can see, this actually makes it very unlikely that you're actually going to use the retributive effect of having a hostile mob actually damaged by it, because I'm just trying to build towards that, and as you can see, it's actually taking a concerted effort, because it has to be at full power to do that. And I'm adding on probably more than full power actually needs. But I'm just trying to ensure that I have enough, and that there's an entryway that a mob could possibly have to get to it. They just need to be within a certain number of blocks of it. Pretty close, actually. So again, that makes this a little unlikely to work in survival scenario, but in addition to that, there's also the possibility... Okay, there it goes. And you'll see a particle effect as it attacks. And that one just... That drown just got blasted. See, the way it works, it looks like it's literally just causing bubbles to form onto it, but also pulling towards itself. So it's like it's drawing their life out, which is pretty cool. And then some of the bubbles going into the chamber, and looking like they're further fuel for the conduit. So, yeah, the conduit is very cool. As you can see, it's has some really nifty effects when you really look at it close. It's animated, it kind of looks vaguely like an end crystal. It also has this energy going around it there, and it also has the particle effects going into it. And it requires this nice, cool build, so it has this very much underwater beacon-like quality. As for what the effect does itself, you'll be very proud to know that it does pretty much everything you need. Everything for underwater. So, if I go into game mode again, and this is, you know, this is actually slowing me down more than anything. Yeah, it's kind of slowing me down doing the coding the new way. But yeah, you'll notice my breath is not going to go down at all. So that's cool. And I can go out to a pretty good distance and still get the effect as long as I'm in the water. Again, it will go away if I'm out of the water. Now, the thing about it is it enables me to breathe indefinitely. I see very clearly in the water, kind of like the whole night vision underwater type thing. And additionally, it gives a very special extra bonus. And I'll show this off with the faster pick just cause. But you can mine fast underwater as if you were out of the water. But note that you have to be in water for the effect to work. So that's definitely a thing you'll need to note, is that you need to be in water for everything. But you can, however, just use it as an equilibrator of awesomeness, because you can now do everything in water that you wanted to do out of it. So this means from henceforth, if you have the beacon, you don't even need to worry yourself with, are those ghost blocks? Oh yeah, I'm in survival, so it's not like it's getting auto-erased. But anyhow, as I was saying, you can use underwater bases now without having to worry about the clearing out of the water or using a lot of water-breathing potions or whatever. You can just have one of these nearby. And it's kind of a relative thing. It goes from like 30 some odd blocks all the way out to 90, depending on how many blocks you have surrounding it with the qualifying types. So it can get hilariously wide. I don't know if that's the exact values, but with the effect being refreshed periodically, it kind of makes that a bit relative. But either way, in long story short, it means if you have the full build, it will go a very long distance. And you can in fact fill in these 4 blocks here and extend it out just a little bit more for absolute power. So, but whenever it gets to a certain power level, that's when it starts attacking hostile mobs. And at full power, you will get it very, very, very far away. So I can swim pretty much to the next one and have no interruption of my effect whatsoever. So you can space them out pretty well, actually, in survival, which is very cool. Hi, parrots. Now, there are other things I'd like to show quickly, if I can, in terms of structures and stuff. And that is some of these things like the sunken ships, otherwise known as shipwrecks. While those other areas are referred to as ruins in general, or ocean ruins specifically, the sunken ships are different. They can occur in this formation where they're upside down, they can be right side up, they can be more or less destroyed than other times, and they will have varying amounts of treasure. This is also the first time that bottle enchanting has officially been a possible treasure in the treasure chests of anything before. And I'm just also using this to stockpile the other stuff back. But yeah, you can have iron nuggets, iron ingots, bottles of enchanting, emeralds. You can also have like things like diamonds and other stuff in there. Maybe not that time, but let's see. And they can have between 1 and 3 chests at various positions. Also, there's different categories. Like this one is obviously the provisions chest. And sometimes not all of the different categories will be there. We also have an uncarved pumpkin. We have some wheat. And we have an enchanted leather tunic, which is apparently cursed rather than enchanted. But it had potatoes, poisonous potatoes, which is interesting. You can get that as a treasure here. Rotten flesh, wheat, that. And there's also a possibility, if you find it, that you might get a buried treasure map in one of these, which is very appropriate because they're kind of like a pirate ship. So there is that. And that is a new structure. And what is with the weather today, seriously? I rarely have had that issue myself, but today seems very different. Here's a nice underwater ruin again. As you can see, this one's mostly made out of sandstone. There's another one that's made out of sandstone. These seem to be very popular around here. Here's one that has a bit of a mix. It has sandstone, but it also has some granite. Oh, and this time the treasure chest is just kind of exposed from over here. Ah, coal. Nice to know. Although I think that rod could be a bit better because it's a bit cursed. So yeah, that may not be the best rod. But yeah, so those are one of the new structures, and both of them can have the maps. Really? Okay, this time I'm going to do like I often do and say 100,000. Okay, so yeah, now let me see if I can show off that. I don't remember if I'm going to find that structure very soon into this, but there was an area somewhat nearby that was frozen. I do have a frozen coastline around here somewhere, and basically in frozen oceans, where where you get this really cold climate and it's all frozen over, you can get glaciers. I showed that before in my seed showcase having to do with this particular seed. And it's actually very impressive whenever you see one. They're made out of a combination of packed ice and some of the new blue ice that I showed before. And okay, that's where it's starting to get frosty, so I know that's a thing. So let me go into turbo mode since now they've kind of locked on. But yeah, I can just zoom along the coastline. And as I kind of showed before, you might see some other structures or variations, like you can see more of the ocean ruins there. And let's see here. Ice Plain Spike. Ice Plain Spikes biome. That's not technically the glacier. I know I've got one around here somewhere. Also look out for variations of ruins while I'm zooming, because if I can see a ruins that's made out of prismarine, that'll kind of show my point. That is another pirate ship. So we have a shipwreck. Again, they are properly known as shipwrecks, even though a good term is pirate ship. Paper, TNT, gunpowder, wheat. It's like they're trying to provide for their cartographer. Oh, nice. But yeah, as I said, provisions chest. Okay, going along. And by the way, you can find those structures, both of which, fairly frequently. They are not hard to find at all. Now, going for your buried treasure, admittedly, it's kind of rare that it's technically on land. The majority of them will be in the ocean biome and very close to the surface. But usually they're under the underwater surface. So that's the thing if you're looking for them to complete yourself the conduit, is you may have to go underwater a little to do that, and not just for like the ruins and the shipwrecks. And the shipwrecks too can also be partially or fully on water, like the ruins. Like that one kind of was partially above it, so that happens too. So I'm zooming around very quickly if I can. I probably should have used a speed potion. Shipwreck. So where is my frosty glacier? Glacier? I know you're around here somewhere. I've seen you before. That's more of the ice plane spikes. Ah, glacier. There you go. This is what I wanted to show off. A glacier. Yeah, this is not its own biome. It's particularly part of cold and frozen oceans, as I was saying. So if you go F3, you'll note here that under the biome, it's saying it's frozen ocean. So yeah, and they can contain that new blue ice as well as part of the structure. Now, the blue ice will be hard to get a hold of because it will not be at surface level. It'll be like down here. In fact, there's some blue ice. It will only be at the bottom of the glaciers. And again, glaciers are another thing that's kind of been around in mods before, although oddly not associated with the ocean. I've seen them with Twilight Forest, so really? Why would the glacier be in the forest and not in the ocean? Because that's, well, I mean, you can find glaciers still stuck on land in some places, but for the most part, it's something where you have them at least bordering the ocean, and that's where it makes a lot more sense here in vanilla Minecraft. But as you can see, the old rule that a good portion of the glacier is below the water, well, you can see that you only have the caps here, and whenever you go in, there's a lot more ice down here. And this is, again, mostly packed ice with some blue ice. So that's something to keep in mind. And hey, here's a rare event. The blue ice is pretty close to the surface where you could mine it more easily. You will need Silk Touch to get blue ice as well. So yeah, that's a thing. There seems to be this theme going around with this particular version of more things with Silk Touch. So yeah, and they mine a lot slower than regular ice. The thing is, I didn't really show that entirely before. Now this one has a lot of efficiency and Silk Touch, so I can show it off as a last thing. So let me game mode to survival and just show what it's like. Okay, that admittedly was... I have a very good pick. But, okay, so that shows how fast you can be if you have a very good pick with Silk Touch. Because normally this would take longer than normal ice and packed ice. So, yeah, I mean, you can harvest a lot if you'd like it here. And blue ice is pretty darn awesome. It's slicker and tougher than normal ice and packed ice. So it can be a supporting block for your winter-themed structures. So yeah, I mean, I'd suggest checking out the blue ice. So yeah, it's like ice. It's a little slick, and you can find it in this beautiful frozen structure. So yeah, I think that'll be it for like this exact run. I'll show off more of the mobs and stuff later, as well as anything that happens if they were to update more stuff. I'm sorry I couldn't find a ocean ruin that specifically had prismarine as part of the structure in my zoom by, but I was going particularly quick, so I might have just shot right past some. For now, I'll be logging off. So this has been Glitch Reaper. Hope to hear from you all later. So bye for now, everybody.